The Things We All Carry is a podcast about first responders and their stories surrounding trauma on the job. The intention of this podcast is to raise awareness and share meaningful conversation around a subject often viewed as taboo or simply ignored. Be aware this content may be graphic and it is real. It may not be suitable for children or adults triggered by this subject matter. Welcome to episode 75 of The Things We All Carry. Mike is a 15-year career firefighter and has 17 years as a paramedic. He started his career at a young age as a volunteer. He's also a husband and a father of 2 young children. I was scrolling through Facebook one day when I happened upon a post from a firefighter in Central Virginia. He was asking for donations to raise money for the Center of Excellence. He wasn't simply asking for money, though. He was asking for sponsorship for a run he had planned. That run would take him from Central Virginia, across the Potomac River to Southern Maryland, up to the Center of Excellence, making it a distance of roughly 80 miles. After reading his post, I reached out and floated the idea of having him as a guest on the show. After some discussion back and forth and an hour-long phone call, we settled on a day and time. Mike and I sat down together in my apartment and recorded this conversation. Mike shares his early brushes with death and trauma and how those times formed and affected him. He is open about the mistakes he's made, the alcohol he used as an escape, and the road he is on towards recovery. A quick reminder to please help us build a community which not only recognizes but supports each other through the struggles and recovery. Reach out through Instagram at The Things We All Carry or email mystory@thethingsweallcarry.com to offer support and share your story. Please remember to leave a review on iTunes and give a shout out to any first responder you know, love, or care about. Y'all enjoy the show. Welcome back to The Things We All Carry. Today's guest is Michael, and Michael's out of Central Virginia. I'm going to let him tell his story of growing up, what life was like as a kid, where he came from, and how he got into the fire service. How you doing, Michael?
Good, sir. How are you today?
Doing well.
So basically, growing up, I grew up just south of the city of Richmond, in a county. Grew up single family home, kind of, I wouldn't say low income, but borderline there towards the low income. Got an older brother, and never met my father. Separated before I think I was 2 years old, separated and divorced. Basically grew up in this county, in about the teenage years when I started junior high school. I was considered, I guess if you read a textbook or you looked at like juvenile delinquency, I was considered a troubled teen. So the guidance counselor was trying to figure out a way to cure my truancy, keep me out of trouble, kind of straighten me up a little bit. So he referred me to the local volunteer fire department, knowing that they had like a cadet program type deal. And that was the start of the fire service for me. I mean, any kid or teenager, that has an opportunity to ride fire trucks, it's just, to them, it's the greatest thing in the world, because we all idolized them, or kids idolize us, type deal. And that was kind of the start of it. In the fire department, the volunteers as a teenager was kind of on and off. I was still, like I said, that troubled teenager. You had to get good grades. That was, something very difficult for me to do at times. Couldn't get in trouble in school. But again, I got involved in their cadet program. And again, that was the seed of, I want to help other people, I guess is the type deal.
Through the cadet program?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long did you stay in the cadet program?
Oh, wow. It's been so long ago, I couldn't tell you. I mean, it was like I said, it was off and on throughout my teenage years. And with the cadet program, I was also exposed to the rescue squad. So at the age of 18, I ended up joining the rescue squad as well. Just based off of, we would show up on the fire truck to medical calls, and I wanted to know why they were doing what they were doing, to help these people, type deal. But as far as like a specific time frame, again, it was, the cadet program itself was hit and miss. Continued to volunteer as an adult for the first few years of my, after 18. The same thing with the rescue squad before I got hired with the city, with Richmond Ambulance Authority as an EMT in my early 20s. Did that for a couple years and left. Went back to doing automotive type deal work. But after doing that for a few years and working other various jobs, I wasn't happy. So I wanted to get back into the the fire and EMS. So I ended up going back to Richmond Ambulance, where I got my paramedic through them. Worked there for a few years before I transitioned over to becoming a career firefighter with the current department that I'm with now.
When did you become a career firefighter?
So back in '07
Okay.
is when I was hired as a career firefighter.
All right. And that puts you at what age?
I was 30, I was either 30 or 31 years old.
Okay. So you started not early in life, obviously, but a little later than some people do.
Yes, sir.
It's pretty good time to start, though. If you're looking at a 20, 25-year career for retirement, I mean, that leaves you still pretty young.
Yes, sir.
So what was life like on the ambulance in Richmond? And I asked this question because all the way back last year when I did episode 1 of this show was a gentleman named Chad, and he ran ambulance services in Richmond, and he had quite the stories to tell about Richmond.
Richmond was, believe it or not, I miss working in the city. Richmond is a great place to get the experience as an EMT and as a paramedic, because I think the city of Richmond is 60 square miles, and condensed. And the way I like to tell people in my tenure there, you wouldn't go a work week without a pretty significant trauma call, traumatic injury call. And you also wouldn't go a work week without a pretty significant medical call where your skills as an EMT and your skills as a paramedic were tested. So you felt like you were doing good for the people. I mean, you still had the mundane, headache, toothache calls, but you had those calls that tested your skills. I definitely saw, I always tell people I've seen enough death to last me the rest of my life. Like if I never saw it again, I'd be happy. But the city of Richmond was kind of an eye-opener experience to me on how cruel one human being can be to another human being. And just, again, the vehicle accidents, the shootings, house fires, the amount of drugs, the assaults. I mean, it just, you saw the worst of the worst on a regular basis there, type deal. Whereas with my department, it just depends on what station you're at, versus, if you get a call like that. So Richmond I always tell people that Richmond it either makes you or breaks you as a provider, either as an EMT. It's either going to make you one hell of an EMT that wants to be a paramedic, or it's or it's going to make you one hell of a paramedic that will be the most calm, cool, collected person that walks in and says, okay, this is what we need to do. I need you to do this, you to do this, you to do this. And they don't break a sweat doing it.
It's I was going to say funny, but it's obviously not funny. I mean, ironic, because I think Chris used the same term, the depths of almost human depravity of what another human will do to another human.
Absolutely.
And I think he used that same sentence in his discussion about running in Richmond. And so to me, it's obviously confirming of what he said, which I had no doubts that that's what he meant, but it's just like, it's a shame that is accurate. And he had some of the worst calls he's ever run were in Richmond too. And he had horror stories to tell about Richmond. And that was even before we got to the real stuff of what he wanted to talk about. And so I had a pretty good view of what running EMS in Richmond is like. And so,
yeah. And again, I'm like the individual Chris, again, that's part of my wall of Polaroids, of just the horrible shit that we have to see and the shit that we have to see all the time.
I like that you and I were talking before we came on air, quote unquote, that wall of Polaroids is such a good way to put it. And I think that we'll get to that more of that later when we get into, further down the line in the story. But I want to, it's kind of a catchphrase that I kind of like. So,
yes, sir, absolutely.
How long did you spend with EMS in Richmond then?
I think total about 5 years, 2 years in my 20s as an EMT, and then I think it was about 3 years where I went back as an EMT and then went through a paramedic program and then continued until the fire service offered me an opportunity.
And when did you meet your wife along the way here?
So I met my wife after I was a career firefighter. Okay. I was still a fairly new firefighter. I guess I don't think I'd been on the fire department maybe 5 years, and I actually met her in the hospital. So
Okay. I didn't know if maybe she was around, involved with you when you were in Richmond or not. That's why I asked. All right. So how do you find yourself as a career firefighter? I mean, when did you make that choice? You said it, you're about 31 in 2007, but how does that choice come about for you? Why did you choose to go career?
So again, the fire department was what I was introduced to as a teenager. The fire department came first, the volunteer fire department, and then the rescue squad came second. Because again, I felt like I wanted to do more, provide more, learn more about what everybody was doing. So the fire department was always something that I wanted to do, to be a career firefighter. I never pushed myself to truly commit to like the application process. In my early 20s, I applied for Richmond Fire and had no idea what I was walking into with panel interviews or anything, and blew it out. It completely screwed the pooch on it. So, and it was very disheartening. But then after working, when I went back to Richmond, prior to me going back to the city, I was not happy, but happy with what I was doing, happy with where my life was going. So that's why I went back to get that paramedic, because again, I was like, okay, this can help me as a stepping stone to get that career fire service job that I idolized so much. So that was my intentions when I went back: get my ALS, get some good solid experience under my belt, and then go back to pursuing that path of a career fire job. And again, it just, it all seemed to work out like it was supposed to. And that's what happened.
All right. So take me through some of your career. You obviously academy and all that, you take a probationary year, but when did things start building up for you?
Oh, wow.
Or do you even notice it at the time? Because you and I, we spent about an hour on the phone one day, and we talked about some of your story, but we didn't get into particulars. And so I'm not sure how things progressed for you in your fire career.
Well, it was actually before the fire career. It was the things I was exposed to, and in the city, some of the calls, and then you never forget, seeing death as a teenager, and not traditional, in my personal opinion, not knowing how to process what you're seeing, especially at such a young age. I saw my first pediatric motor vehicle fatality when I was maybe 15 years old. And it was one pediatric fatality, one pediatric that was going to be flown out. The driver was pinned in the vehicle with the motor on him. A teenage girl was partially ejected out of the passenger side, trapped in between the B post and the front seat, and another adult female just laying on the ground screaming. And I was the first provider. I was the first firefighter, volunteer firefighter on scene. It was literally right in front of my neighborhood. And I just ran towards it, not having any medical training. Just, I got to be there. I'm part of the volunteer fire department. And when I was met with everything I saw, it locked me up. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there. But again, I was this 15, 16-year-old kid with no, really no training on how to approach that type of scene. And that's one that has always stuck with me. I always see, the one toddler in the backseat of the car, crying out to me and reaching up. And I always see the other toddler that ended up deceased in the fetal position, laying in the floorboard and not moving. I can see the teenage girl reaching out to me saying, "Help me." I can see the adult female on the ground just laying there screaming, and here, and again, I'm just there. Didn't know what to do. I'm just standing there, just in shock from the scene. And then a few minutes later, a doctor finally shows up. He happened to be driving by, and he's like, he immediately looks at the driver and is like, "He's dead." And then goes to the other side of the car and just grabs the two kids out of it. And at this point, other units started arriving on scene, and I kind of just fell in where I felt like I needed to fall in, type deal. I think we kind of went astray on that topic, but
No, it's perfect. You tell your story.
But that was, to me, that was the beginning of holy shit. In my younger years, I felt like it was a whole lot easier to just not to process it, but to keep it at bay. I guess is the easiest thing. But as time progressed and I started to see more and more, again, I continued to keep it at bay. And I'm that, and I've told people this and they look at me and laugh, but I'll walk into a room and tell you I'm the biggest fucking liar in here, because I spent most of my adult life up until I had my moment telling people I'm good. I got this, I don't have a drinking problem. I'm not using alcohol to suppress this shit. I'm good. And I lied to every one of those motherfuckers, including my wife, including my kids, until even though they could see that something had to give one way or the other, type deal. But that was kind of the beginning of it. And again, I mean, just seeing more and more of the traumatic stuff. Like I said, that particular one just is so impactful, because that was like my first true like minor MCI, and I've talked about it with my counselor. And I know in hindsight, if that was to happen to me now, I would know what to do. I would know where to begin the triage process. I would know where to put my hands on first as far as a patient. But that was just, I didn't know what the hell to do.
How old were you again?
I was maybe 15, 16.
Of course you didn't know what to do.
And
You didn't even know how to drive.
Exactly. And I know that, but it's still just hard to process.
Oh, yeah.
But also, again, my brain or our brains at that age are not prepared. The scary movies we watch and the dumb shit we do as kids don't prepare us for, the atmosphere of it. There's always a smell. There's always an atmosphere around trauma. There's, trauma and death, that, some people might be more sensitive to it than others. But again, the brain's not prepared for that. My first DOA as a volunteer, we had to walk in and help the funeral service get this guy out. Guy had been dead on his couch for maybe a week. Extreme organ conditions. And me being me, I wanted to get in and see it. And again, but I wasn't prepared for.
Right.
It was kind of a shock to the system. But even as a teenager, I had that macho attitude that I can do this, and I'm not going to talk to anybody about it, when it's bothering me. Another one of the foundation ones as a volunteer was my first fire fatality. Was a person that, it was a fully involved mobile home, that we were told there's probably a body in there. So during the overhaul process, after it was put out, they're like, okay, just be mindful in the overhaul, and we're going to see if we can find a body. And me being that eager one, I don't know why, but I wanted to find it. I wanted to see it, because I'd never seen it before, not in real life. And we ended up finding them. And I ended up being one of the firefighters to help pick them up. And one of the things I remember when we picked this basically torso up that just had limbs, that didn't, basically everything had burnt to the nub. It was it was damn near incineration. But I remember the back of the head falling apart. So again, I don't know, I maybe 17, 18, if, I couldn't give you an exact age, but I'm picking these pieces of skull up as I just picked up this torso, put it in a body bag, and helped it to wherever it needed to go. And 2 nights later, I woke myself up because I was having a dream that the pieces of skull were on my bed, and I was trying to wipe them off. And I didn't realize at the time, and you couldn't have told me anything before that was like a sign of PTSD. That was a sign of, you probably need to talk to somebody to process this stuff. Again, I didn't want to be that guy type deal. I mean, those are the foundational calls. But again, I like I said, I've seen some horrible shit in the city too. That, like I said, that are just always in front of me.
2 nights after, and you start dreaming about that already, and you're like, okay, so how, at that time, and you do that, you have that dream. It's not a dream. It's that you have that nightmare, and it's so very real. I'm imagining. What do you do with it at that point? Did you do anything?
I didn't do anything about it.
And did that continue?
Nope. It was just the one time.
Okay.
But it was vivid enough to feel very, very real. Cause again, I thought there were pieces of skull on my bed, and I'm waking up and brushing them off. Again, I didn't know any better. I didn't know, to talk to anybody. And to be honest with you, the times that they did offer CIT to us or some type of after action review to
Right.
talk about this stuff. I don't know if I was too scared to or just too proud to say, again, I need a little help with this.
When you say too scared to, do you think it's because of what the judgment that would come, or just scared to open it up and see what's actually in there?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit of both. Again, growing up in a single family home, it's a little difficult. And I was never much, there were certain things that I just kept to myself feelings wise, type deal. Again, mother did the best she could. We had extended family that always did the best they could. But I don't know why. I just didn't want to.
So those are foundational calls, but you obviously have to add on to those because you have an extensive fire career following that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And to be honest with you, they come and go, on which ones bother me, which ones don't. They come and go on which ones will come to my forethought and which ones don't. There's, like I said, there's a lot of there's a handful of truly traumatic ones. Richmond, we had one where a gentleman, took it was, the best I can describe is an execution style shot to the back of the head. And so his head was a candy dish. So the entire top of the skull was gone. And we walk up and I look and I shine my flashlight down and I'm looking inside somebody's head. And then I looked at the gentleman's face and his eyes were halfway open. He took a breath. And I did a 180 and I looked at my partner and I was just an EMT at the time. And he's like, don't worry, it's going to stop in a minute. There's nothing we can do here. And then I'm like, well, where's his brain? Just out of curiosity. And I look and there's this gob of goo about his
Right.
person's left foot. So, but they continued to breathe for, a good 8-10 minutes.
The brainstem just working.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to see that was a shocker. I had a 3-year-old that was thrown out of the second story window of a house fire on the south side of the city, one night, that was still breathing, still had a pulse. But this little girl had been baked in an oven. There was, I didn't know any better on what to do. I mean, she still had a pulse, but there was nothing we could do for her other than take her to the hospital.
Right.
But this little girl was, when I showed up on scene, I was the second unit on scene of that call, either the second or third. And I remember looking at one of the paramedics and I said, what do you have? And she goes, they're everywhere, because there were multiple victims, and fire was still working on trying to get other victims. And I said, just give me the worst that you have. And I remember she come running over to me with a toddler about the size of a 3-year-old girl. And she put this girl in my arms and I'm holding it in a burn blanket. And this child, like I said, she had been baked. She looked like a star. Skin was charred. Most of her clothes were gone and she's still breathing. She still has a pulse. So I just turned, told my partner to get in the driver's seat of the ambulance, ran to the ambulance, got in the back. An RPD officer jumps in and says, what can I do to help? And I said, man, just back her, just take this and try to give her a little bit of air. The pads of the monitor wouldn't even stick to her. We took her to MCV, trauma accepted her. And there was, again, I'm standing there, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And there's, basically there was nothing they could do. It was just a matter of let what's going to run its course. So,
Yeah, there's truly nothing you can do at that point for the extent of the damage and the injuries.
correct. Yes.
I mean, comfort and like you said, to a hospital,
Yep.
even though the hospital's not going to be able to do anything at that point.
Yeah. And I think what bothers me the most is there was no comfort. There's no
Right.
comfort that I could give. She wasn't even conscious.
Right.
In hindsight, you can only hope that she wasn't feeling anything at that point. Because this if we would have found this without a pulse and without that wasn't breathing on her own, we would have left her right where she was. It would have been don't touch her,
Right.
type deal. But unfortunately, she had a pulse, she was breathing.
So let's kind of, we don't need to glorify all the calls.
Yep. Yes.
I mean, just because it's not ideal for anybody.
Absolutely.
you feel free to share whatever else you want to share, but let's talk about what led up to, I don't know, how do you term what happened for you before you go to the center? Well, how do you term that?
Oh, wow. It was until, again, the perfect storm. It was just things that I feel like needed to happen to force me to get the help that I needed.
Sure.
In a kind of an overview, I was miserable as shit at home. And my home life was falling apart between my wife and I, and my kids were witnessing this. And I was miserable as shit at work, and I was medicating the hell out of myself with nothing but alcohol and exercise, to try to try to not be miserable, to not feel bad, to not say, hey, I need to talk to somebody. I've got years of stuff that is just been piled on top of me. And I'm not, the only relief was the alcohol and exercise type deal.
You say it's a perfect storm.
Yes, sir.
And you say you're miserable at home.
Yes, sir.
You're miserable at the job.
Yes, sir.
You're medicated with alcohol. Exercise is an addiction as well, which that's one we don't really talk about too often, is that addiction to exercise, because it is an addiction at times. And in some ways it's kind of counterintuitive, but it can also be almost a self-harm tool as well.
It's funny that you said that, because when I had my moment and I finally reached out for help, I looked at the gentleman that came to my aid, and I said, this morning I tried to run myself into a heart attack.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I meant.
So,
right.
Yeah. I wanted to have a heart attack back in the woods and just be done with it.
Yeah. So explain that day. What's going on that day, other than the situation you've just, the misery at home, the misery at work, the alcohol?
So, to back up a little bit, what ended up happening is I left the fire service career, and I took a job as a flight paramedic, which is like my plan, like my dream retirement job. So I walked away from a supervisor position in the fire department because I was just so unhappy, and I didn't know, I didn't want to reach out for help. I thought change is what I needed, and took this position, and didn't even complete the orientation process before this day in my driveway, where everything just ended. My wife and I had separated, and I'd temporarily been living with my brother, and his wife. We'd been separated for a couple weeks up to this incident. I had been binge drinking, for a week. And it's funny, it was not funny, but I tell people, I was surviving off of bananas, Red Bull, and vodka for a week, not knowing what to do. Do I keep this paramedic job? I just walked away from a supervisory position in the fire service that I was so proud to have, but I was so miserable, because everything just was falling apart around me. So I reached out, I sent a text to one of my former shift mates and said, hey, I'm in a hole. I'm sitting here in my brother's driveway, and I don't know of any way out of this hole. And then within the hour, he's there talking to me, trying to figure out what was going on. And how good I was at hiding this from everybody, that I'd been staying with my brother and his wife for a couple of weeks, and they had no idea. They had no idea that I was, where I was at mentally and physically. They were like, okay, he's separated from his wife, but they had no idea the level of sick,
right,
that I was. Sick mentally, sick physically, in I guess the help that I need.
Hey guys, quick break right here just to check in and thank each of you for listening to the show. Your support has been paramount, and I appreciate all of you. I have one request though. I need you to share the show with everyone you know. Help me get the word out and spread these stories as far and as wide as we can. While you're at it, please leave a review of the show wherever you happen to listen. Feel free to reach out to me at any time to share your story, to talk, or to pass on suggestions.
let's get on with the rest of the show. And you look back now and do you know how you were managing to hide it from everybody? I mean, it had to been, that had to been taxing in itself.
It was very taxing, and it's just me. I've always been, kind of introverted, always kind of kept things to myself. And I didn't share a lot of feelings, and things of that nature. And again, I used exercise and alcohol. So, I would go take off and go for, a 5+ mile run, do interval workouts, and then, have a few drinks, come back, and then, eat dinner, and then I'm off to the room and I'm by myself, and I'm in there with myself. I'm in my own damn head, and just, it was a repeat process.
So you text your former shift mate and you say, I'm in a hole. He shows up. What happens?
He talks to me. He listens. He did, and again, I can never repay him for what he did. So again, the goal like this is to pay it forward to the next guy. But he listened, he listened to what I had to say. And then he felt like more was needed. So he reached out to, our fire department chaplain. He's like, hey, I think I've reached a point to where you need to come out here. So the next thing I know, our fire department chaplain's out there. And it was the same thing, he's out there and they just listen. They listened to me, and we talked about what was next, type deal. Where do we go from here? So, and the goal was to get me detoxed. And then they were reaching out that evening to the center, to try to see about getting me, a place up there in the center. And that started the chain to get me up in Maryland.
And you mentioned that you had left the fire department and you were taking the flight medic position. How does that affect your ability to get into the Center of Excellence? Because you left with good standing, you're able to get in?
Correct. I left with good standing, and I was still a union member, still paying my dues.
Right.
Yeah, and that was one of the things with the fire department when I decided to leave. Again, I was a good employee, and so they let me know it's at the chief's discretion, up to about a year. If things don't work out, by all means, you can come back, if there's a spot in the position available for you. So that was like a shimmer of hope type deal, because I knew once the center was going to come about, I had to pull back on the the flight medic thing. There was no way I could meet their obligations.
So with the center, they arrange for you to go up. How long does it take between that time the chaplain comes and they start working on it till you're admitted to the center?
So it took about a week and a half.
Okay. So there's a good gap there.
Well, there was a little bit of a gap, but I think so the center, believe it or not, a lot of times they have a waiting list to get individuals in there. So when I talked to the director, when I ran up there, when I did the run up there, they were already in the process of opening up the center on the West Coast. And I was so happy to hear that, because so I think it was, they had to do with a little bit of the insurance as well. But and also a spot being open.
So how does that progress then? You get up there in a week or week and a half, and I mean, it's got to be a shock to you, right?
It was. I went through. So again, I went through detox to kind of get me to where I needed to be, and then I drove myself up there, which I wanted to do because I wanted to see if I was going to actually commit to turning and pulling into this place, even though I had an outpouring of support from my fellow department members saying, hey, we want to take you there. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to take myself. I mean, I was getting texts and calls. Hey, we're ready. Just let us know. We'll drive you up there. We'll get you what you need. We'll pick you up, bring you home. But I had to do it myself. And from my area up there, I think it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was like a commute that was to here. It was a long drive to think about a lot. Just the same thing coming here to meet and talk with you. A lot of time the process, am I really going to commit to this? And it's funny because I said the same thing when I'm looking for your address. I'm like, am I really going to commit to this yet? But I probably drove past the centers. Once I knew where the main entrance was, I drove by it at least 5 times before I turned in and said, okay, I've got to do this.
Right.
I knew they were waiting on me. I knew that I could have turned around and went right the fuck back home and been fine for a week or two, but I would have been right back in the same damn shit that I was in before. I was like, okay, this is something, again, you're currently not with the fire department. You haven't seen your kids in a couple of weeks, which has never happened before. Your wife, you and your wife have not like officially separated, but you've moved your shit out the house. Why not? Let's see what the hell they can do for me.
Yeah. What do you have to lose at this point?
Exactly. So, I mean, there's nowhere to go but up.
So how's that process start once you walk through the doors?
So it was still during COVID. So again, you have to wait for them to COVID test you, but from the get go, the staff there, they were again the most friendliest people and the most inviting individuals that are bringing you onto this campus. Again, because I drove myself, there was I had to turn my truck over, turn my keys over. They had to do a search, and it's like it's like any facility you go to. They have certain components that they have to do before, medical components and screening components that you have to do before they can, kind of, I guess, release you to the population, which is not a good term for it, because that place is more like a resort. It's not like your typical mental health facility where you have walls holding you in and you have security all over the place. I mean, I tell people they need to visit it. That's one thing that I told my union leader in my chaplain. I'm like, you need to go up there and see what you sent me to do and see the facility. Not, you can visit it online, but it doesn't do justice for walking around that campus and seeing. But it's a little different for everybody, I guess. Since I came, I didn't have to be detoxed when I got there, so I only spent a couple days in, I guess, what they consider their medical wing, which they'll have eyes on you for 24 hours. They check on you on a regular basis to make sure you don't have the seizures and things that can come with detox. And then basically from that, from day one, they're introducing you to people. You're meeting other firefighters, you're meeting other paramedics, you're meeting other EMTs, and you're kind of put in there, and the staff shows you around. You meet under other individuals, and it's just like, hey, welcome, your family. So in whatever time that falls, if it falls at lunchtime, come on in the cafeteria. You're going to sit down, you're going to eat with a whole shit ton of other people that are just as fucked up as you are, but everybody's just super inviting to have you there. And eventually you start to fall into a routine. They have schedules of classes that you'll go to. They feed you 3 square meals a day. You're allotted recreation time during pool season. They have an in-ground pool that's open for use during your downtime when you're not attending classes. There's walking trails. It's at least in my opinion, their goal is to get you sleeping on a regular basis, to get you on a schedule, and to feed you well and work on your mental health in the process. But you're always going to classes with your other peers, to teach you, to help you understand, PTSD, or to help you understand, substance abuse and consumption, and they teach you coping skills. They do one-on-one, trauma with you. Again, if you do have that PTSD diagnosis, I mean, they individualize it to a lot of people, which to me is an amazing thing.
So how long does it take before you start working on you immediate? Is it like immediate you start working on you and then they come to this diagnosis, or how do they come to this diagnosis for you?
So generally within the first 5 days that you're there, if I remember correctly, you start to meet the clinicians. You see a medical doctor. They have a medical doctor on site. They do a physical workup on you. They do lab works on you. And then you do a mental health intake to determine, what animal are we dealing with here, or what animals are we dealing with here. And these are all one-on-one. So, and they try to, they try to figure out what category to put you in, or what group of it, classes you need to start going to, and then what one-on-one focus, if that's needed, you need to be, that you need to start doing.
And so what do they diagnose you with?
So they diagnosed me with PTSD, with a side of substance abuse.
With a side, huh?
And they labeled it complex PTSD because
Okay.
it's not one particular incident. It's a layer. It's just that wall, that wall of stuff.
Yeah. Explain what you mean by a wall of Polaroids for us.
So somebody asked me, and I'm continuing to work with my counselor, when we started my EMDR, we reached a point, during my EMDR session where she's like, all right, where's your mind at now? And I said, ma'am, I am standing in front of a wall of nothing but Polaroids of death and shit. And when I say shit, it's not just death. It's just the negative stuff that we see all the time. And it's the easiest way for me to describe it to somebody that doesn't understand that this wall that I look at is always in the forefront of my mind. And I can just run down this wall and pull a Polaroid off and go and tell you that. And again, when I pull that Polaroid, or when my mind plucks it, the details and smells and other individuals that were involved in that incident just come right back into my forward thought. So again, it's a giant wall. It's not like a movie for me. It's like I can reach up and pick out any damn one I want, but my mind was just doing it for me.
So do you come to that term while you're in the center? Or is that after the center?
What do you mean?
That term of a wall of Polaroids?
I came to that after, because after I left the center, so the center has aftercare as well. So they set you up with mental health outside, and if you need substance abuse, continued substance abuse treatment, they schedule all that before you're discharged. So I already had a clinician set up that I was going to meet with weekly, and it just so happened during my EMDR session, or one of my EMDR sessions, is that when she asked me where my mind was at, it's just, I'm looking at my dining room wall, and I'm like, I'm standing in front of a wall of Polaroids, man. I was like, not one particular thing is like thrown out at me right now. I was like, I'm looking at them all, and I don't know, which one to process.
Yeah, as I say, where do you start when it's a wall?
Exactly. And again, at least with so I'm still new to the EMDR, but at least with my experience of it, my mind was going from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And some of my, greatest fears. I even went to one of those, which was completely out of right field. When she's like, where's your mind at right now? And I'm like, ma'am, I'm holding my son and he's dead. I was like, that's how bad my I guess that hypersensitivity of and everything is.
So back to your time at the center, what do you start to attack in the Center of Excellence? What do the doctors and the team there, what do they have you do?
So they want to get you healthy. So again, one of the first questions they ask is, are you sleeping? And if not, they're going to help you sleep.
Right.
So they want to get you, because they understand, the fire EMS career is, we don't sleep like normal people do. And when you've been doing this for damn near most of your life, your sleep rhythm's all screwed up. And mine was so bad that there were times where I'd have to come home and have a drink in the morning just to go to sleep. I couldn't turn it off. So that's one of the first things is they want to get you sleeping. Again, they do a thorough assessment, medical. They do a thorough psychological assessment, and then and from that point they assign you to a clinician that oversees your case. You meet with that clinician, and they explain to you how things are going to progress while you're there at the center. What groups they're going to put you in. And every day was very, very scheduled. Every day you wake up, you have groups, depending on what level you are at the center. So, for the first 2 weeks, you're 7 days a week scheduled to go to groups. So you have, you wake up, you would go eat breakfast. I always wanted to work out before. So I would get up earlier, hit the gym, shower up, and then I'm at breakfast, and then, I'm at my first group session. And then, you got about 15 minutes in between group sessions. I think if I remember correctly, you're doing 2 before lunch and you're doing, 2 after lunch. Again, lunchtime is lunchtime. Everybody's heading off doing their stuff. And then dinner time, after dinner time, that's when everything becomes your time, to kind of relax. But in these groups, I'm an introvert by nature. And it takes a few days, at least for me to open up to individuals. It takes a few days of being in these groups. At least it took a few days for me to open up. And, again, everybody's nice, nobody's judging. You don't feel like you're being judged there. But it took a few days for me to finally, I was sitting there, and I don't know which group it was. But I looked to the left and I'm like, okay. And I looked to the right and I'm like, okay. I was like, you know what? This asshole's fucked up. That asshole's fucked up, and I'm really fucked up. And so I you know what? They're sharing their shit. Let me share mine, because a lot of what they were sharing was very, very fucking similar to what the hell I was going through. And it's like, holy shit. And you're surrounded by your peers. They get it. They understand. These are other firefighters and other paramedics that just, you can't bullshit them. They know you're fucked up. That's why you're there.
Yeah, there's no hiding at that spot.
Yeah, there was no hiding it. So it was a relief that I'd never felt before, just to sit in a room with 15, 20 individuals that I didn't have a close relationship with, and just throw up the shit that, I've been dealing with. And it's like, okay, I need some damn help. And to have that support, by complete fucking strangers, that the only thing that we had in common was being fucked up, being part of the fire service. If anything speaks of the brotherhood and the sisterhood of the fire service, I really felt it there.
So how long do you stay?
That's dependent on you.
Well, how long did you stay personally?
I stayed for 31 to 32 days.
Okay.
And it was bittersweet. I would have loved to have stayed more. I would have loved to have stayed longer. But I had to get back to work. I still, and that's what I told them, when I talked about discharge, I was like, I've got to get back to work. They're working on getting me back on the job. I got to get some income coming back in, and they were happy with the progress that I'd made, when I was there. But there were individuals that I think have been there for a few months, and there were a few return individuals too, that came back, after being at the center, before. I met one firefighter who I stay in touch with, from the West Coast. He was a return, very sincere, very nice gentleman, and we stay in touch. We ended up being roommates, in one of the houses before I was, discharged. And I didn't think about it at the time, but I'm thinking, wow, this individual came back, I wonder what brings you back to something like that. And it didn't dawn on me until I realized, like we had said before, there's no cure for this yet.
Right.
And it's comforting to know that at any point I can call the center and say, hey, I need to come back. And as long as they have a spot, come on. We're not going to tell you no. Come on back. We're going to work with you some more. Work with you. We'll work with you as much as you need us to work with you to get you to where you need to be. To me, that speaks volumes to their program, that you have people that want to go back to that place. And honestly, I can see the benefit of this, every few years, because it gives you the ability to mentally reset, mentally focus on yourself, physically reset, and get you sleeping. It was again, when I left the center, as bittersweet as it was, I felt great, physically, mentally. I felt like, okay, I've got some skills to help me deal with this stuff. I've been sleeping damn near every night for the last month. I've been working out damn near every day for the last month, and a healthy workout versus the unhealthy that I was doing. It speaks volumes. And like I said, they're just so they're just so supportive to us there as first responders. And the individuals that we work with, they have an understanding of the animals that we deal with. They had a few that I know had a fire and EMS background that were on staff, but even the ones that didn't have that background, from my understanding, were still required to go ride, on a fire apparatus or ride on an ambulance. So they have so they know the animals that they're dealing with when it comes to us.
So what does I don't know, lack of a better word, what is your reintegration into life? What's it look like? I mean, because now you're coming back because you're still separated from your wife, or there were amends while you were in the center, or how did that work?
There were amends after the center, because this was just as much as an eye opener to her as it was to me, and especially with the PTSD diagnosis, and her, looking into the PTSD stuff. She goes, "Holy shit! Now I get why you were the way you were." And so we decided, so it was a baby step process, but we decided to eventually bring me back into the house. And we've been back together ever since. We've had good days and bad days, but
well, that's going to be anywhere.
Yep. That's a marriage. So my integration back, again, I can tell you physically and mentally, when I came back, I was, I couldn't tell you the last time I felt good like that, because again, it was all about me for that month that I was there, and I had the ability to reset. There was a couple months before I returned to the department that I'm with, because there had to be a meeting with the chief, because it was at his discretion to bring me back, but that was already in motion to bring me back. So there was just, a couple friends of mine helped me out with just a quick little easy side part-time job for me to start bringing in some type of money, to help my wife out with the kids and the mortgage and things like that. And then there was still a continued, while I was at the center and then after I left the center, there was still a continued outpouring of individuals wanting to help, that, again, that I never would have thought would have been the ones to step up to help me or to help my family, to feed my family. The union itself definitely stepped in tremendously, in throwing in again, assisting with, any funds that my wife needed at home. They definitely, assisted with funds, with the insurance, and me not being the biggest union involved member, I think it's a, wonderful benefit to have that and have those individuals to be able to help in a situation like this.
So how long does it take you to get back on the job?
Okay.
And back in the house?
So when you mean back in the house, back in the firehouse?
No, back to your house.
Oh, back to my.
Yeah. No.
So I think I was back to my house before I was back on the job. Again, it was a couple months. And again, so my wife, so somebody had to watch, I helped out with watching the kids. So she would go to work, I would come to the house, try to help do whatever needed to be done. Ironically, my washing machine decided to take a shit, in all this. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to go buy us a washing machine. And she's like, well, I don't need you to buy one. I was like, well, I don't want you or the kids to not have a washing machine.
Right.
And just, it probably took about a month for me to get back in the house. And my wife, we were both just as leery. I'd put her through some shit, dealing with my own shit. So she was just as nervous as I was, about us, coming back up under the same roof, type deal. I can tell you my kids were ecstatic, cause they were happy to see me home, but they hated to see me leave, in the afternoon, especially after they just spent, almost 2 months not seeing me, which has never happened before. So again, we decided to give it a shot and see what would happen. But, there were some, trying to remember the term we used, there were some boundaries that were set on both our parts. And that's another thing I learned when I was at the center is you got to set your boundaries, and hold firm to those boundaries. And and there weren't any like extreme boundaries, but they just needed to be there. Hey, when I need my, and the simplest one for me is when I need to go for a run, I need to go for a run. If it's not detrimental to, something going on here at the house or something with the kids, I need to go for a run. I need to go for a run for a reason because I need to go process some stuff type deal. And I think with maybe a month or two after that, or maybe 3 months after that, after, again, talking with the union, and then finally getting in to meet with the fire chief, the rehire process was, again, it was a couple of weeks. I had to be re-outfitted, re-uniformed, and then, had to wait to that magic HR date, for payroll and things. And then, so that happened. I already had my station assignment, and then I was basically back on the job.
And so what do you say? What do you think? I don't know. What was right and what was wrong about how you came back into life?
Oh, wow. Wrong, I don't know. I mean, we like to think that this is a fix, and again, it's not. Like I said, there's no cure. And I had that false sense of, I'm cured. And it's like, no, you're not cured. You're just coping and dealing better. The right coming back into it was the shit that they taught me at the center. I wish I would have learned as a damn teenager.
Mm-hmm.
As simple as some of the mindfulness training, and things that they help, help you with, assist you with, and get you doing. Is shit that, again, if you would have taught me that as a teenager and I would have applied that stuff throughout my young adult life, I've probably been doing a whole lot better. So the right was, I walked out of there and I walked back into my personal life. I walked back into my fire service career, definitely with a better understanding of myself, a different outlook of myself, a different outlook of the fire service, in a better way of coping things, a different way of thinking, I guess, is the easiest thing.
And so you go back to the firehouse.
Yes, sir.
And what do you decide to do with this new lease on life?
So just like anybody, I was on fire for the choir. So, I talked to people, because people had questions,
Mm-hmm.
Some people knew, some people didn't. It seemed like, it's the fire department. It's like freaking junior high. There's all kinds of rumors and shit like that. People are like, hey, he left to be a flight paramedic. They're like, they thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I'm like, well, yep, but the perfect fucking storm happened. And I was like, let me tell you what happened. And so I started to share my story, with individuals, right, wrong, or indifferent, just like anybody, you're like, holy shit, I just experienced this. I want others to know that there's an experience out there like this, if they're having issues. And it's funny, again, when I talk to individuals, most of them were receptive. Most of them were like, wow, we had no idea, that you were going through that. Cause again, like we mentioned earlier, I'm that asshole to hit it well until I couldn't. And then, there was a few occasions where there was awkwardness, and we had mentioned that before when talking about, the stigma. It's almost like they're like, holy shit, I don't know what to say to this. Number one, they never saw it in me, cause I'm, again, people know me in my department. I've been on for, almost 20 years. People know who I am across all three shifts. So they're like, we had no idea. And I think some people just, they didn't know how to take it. So it's just like, glad you're doing better. And that was it.
Yeah, there's an awkwardness sometimes to A, finding out about a mental health issue, and B, definitely talking about it.
Sure.
Because also what that does is when I talk to you, it forces me to go, oh, wait a second, I see that in myself.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody does. Whether you want to admit it or not, you start to see, oh, wait a second, I'm doing a little bit of that myself. So yeah, of course there's some awkwardness to it.
There is. And at first it was, at first I was a little jaded by it, but again, I can understand, you hit the nail on the head. People start reflecting on themselves when they hear somebody else start talking about the stuff that they're going through. And I was that individual that when I'd hear about other people going through similar things or worse things, it's just like I didn't want to approach it because I didn't want to call out my own damn faults and lay my own damn faults on the table for other people to see. And again, that's why I call it, the perfect storm of events that just had to happen. That was like, all right, asshole, you got to fix this. Number one. Number two, just lay it on the fucking table. At the end of the day, what people do with it is what they do with it. If I can, my goal is not to save the world. I don't even want to save the world, but if one individual reaches out to me and says, hey man, I need to talk. This is where I'm at. I got you. All right. I'm not going to put myself in your shoes, but I got you. There's resources out there. If you are willing, let me help you guide those to those resources. Cause that's exactly what they did for me is, they weren't like, we understand because they don't understand,
Right.
You're never going to understand each individual, but hey, let's get you here. Let's see if you're willing to do this. And let's go from there, type deal.
So what are you doing today? Because I know there's a very specific reason why I reached out to you, and do you want to explain what you did there?
So when I was at the center, I knew about ultra marathons before I went up there, but when I was at the center, I read a book from an individual that had a very questionable childhood and upbringing that went into the ultra marathons that he started doing, and I did a little bit of research on them myself, and so while I was there, I committed that I was going to run an ultra marathon when I left the center. And because I wanted to see what they were talking about from the mental health aspect of an ultra marathon. They say at some point in that run, depending, it's going to hit you at some point to where you just find yourself in a zone. There's no beginning, there's no end, there's no, pain, there's no, feelings. You're just existing in the space that you are currently stepping in. And it's this very, very surreal, hard to describe feeling. And I wanted to experience that. But also when I was at the center, I had the notion of, okay, if I can get this one ultra marathon under my belt, maybe I can run to the center, from a fixed point. And number one, to say thank you to them, for what they did for me. Number two, to take myself out of my comfort zone, which I did, and vocalize that, hey, I've got, I'm doing this ultra marathon, from this point to hopefully to the Center of Excellence in Maryland, as my way of saying thank you, for helping me, through my struggles of PTSD. And I'm putting this shit on social media for the fucking world to see, which is something that I've never done. I've never done before. It's like, yeah, so you know what, let me try to raise a little bit of money for it too. So basically I'm throwing on social media that, hey, this, I got PTSD, this is what I'm going to do. Please feel free to donate. This is what day I'm going to start. This is a location I'm going to start at. If you want, feel free to help out. If you want to help out at any point, my wife and kids will be my road crews for this incident. And this is my end goal, is to reach the center the next day. And to personally thank them. And I reached out to Mark, the director up there, and I said, hey, Mark, this is what I want to do for you guys. And I said, this is what I've got going on. And I said, number one, I don't want to be disruptive to what you've got going on up there. I was like, but I want to personally do this to thank you and your team. And he was like, absolutely, let me know what you need from me. And, very supportive on his end. Type deal. And I did it. I didn't run the full 75 miles. My body decided to stop me before I reached that point. But again, I ended up going a little over 50 miles, 13 and a half hours in, before I took a hard break, and got a couple hours of sleep, in rehab. And then, I was dropped off 3 miles out from the center, and then kind of limped it in the rest of the way from there to walk on that complex, not being fixed, but thanking them for helping me to better understand myself, better understand the things that I'm going through, and offer me ways to help cope and deal with it.
So what was the ultimate goal? It was to raise money.
Well, the ultimate goal was...
Did you identify a goal money-wise?
I did. I just put a figure. Started a GoFundMe. Again, I'm not tech savvy. This was all new to me. So it's like, hey, I on my social media, I had a GoFundMe, up to $1,000. Ended up raising, I think it was 620 at the end of everything. So I was able to present Mark. My wife and I were able to present Mark, the director, with a check for $620. It went directly to the center, which they use for individuals that don't have the money to pay for certain things. So now my goal is hopefully to do this annually and just to continue to raise funds for them. But I'm going to work with my union for the next one to make this a more publicized event, change the route to make it a little bit more safer.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Running up 301, by yourself from Hanover, Virginia, trying to make it to Maryland was, again, I don't think I've really, was able to get in my head until 11:30 that night when I was in Fort AP Hill and there was absolutely no traffic on the road. I'm like, okay, here's that moment. And it's like, all right, I don't have to I can let my guard down.
Right.
But it was an experience. It was very, very humbling to push my body that hard.
So what are you doing today because you're still running on the job?
Correct.
You're still seeing shit. You're still down there coming home going, that was fucked up. What are you doing today to make sure that stuff doesn't haunt you and that doesn't add to that wall of Polaroids?
Well, unfortunately, the wall of Polaroids is, as long as I'm in this job, is going to continue to grow. So the alcohol is definitely out of the question because that's not going to help. Again, the center helped kind of refocus how I think. So when I wake up in the morning now and I say my morning prayers, how I want to say them, how I want to talk to, however you want to call him, God, your higher power, but I talk to him like I mean it. When I say them, I mean them. They're actually meaningful prayers that I carry with me throughout the day. And again, and also just some of the simple phrases that the center taught me. And again, as simplistic and as childish as it sounds, to walk around and say, what other people eat don't affect the way I shit. Another person's perception of me is their fucking problem. I'm responsible for me. So if you want, so judge me all you want. I don't care. At the end of the day, I'm responsible for this. And I'm constantly reminding myself of these things. These are my morning prayers. These are when my feet are hitting the road and I'm going for a jog. These are my conversations that I'm having, with my higher power, amongst other things, and these are also things that I'm sharing with my two children because they weren't shared with me when I was a young child. They weren't, or as a teenager, I didn't have a lot of people saying, hey, you can be anything you want to be. I had school administrators that were like, you're either going to end up in prison or dead when you turn 18, because again, that's how difficult I was as a child. Instead of, again, trying to figure out how to reinforce this kid to do better, type deal. That's the constant thing. Again, I still exercise. That's just me. Again, it's another addiction of mine, but it's mentally looking at things a whole lot differently. That, again, there's life outside the fire service. I love the fire service, but I've got two small children at home that deserve a better father. They deserve a father. Again, as compared to me, have never met meeting mine. They deserve that role model, that figure in their life. And as tiring as it is sometimes, it's something that I'm committed to doing. And also my goal is to, I hate to say I'm still healing from running over 50 miles, but my goal is also every ultra marathon I run, I'm going to throw it on social media and be like, hey, I'm doing this for us, for us with PTSD, first responders with PTSD, remind people that the center is there, remind people that there are resources that are there. So those are other things that I'm committed to doing, to kind of just to keep me on track.
So you walk into, say you walk into an academy class, and I don't know how large your classes are in your department. For example, we might be 30 to 50 people for an academy class.
Yes.
And you've got these young faces, or maybe not so young in my case, looking at you, and they don't know what they don't know about the job.
Sure.
Give me 3 things you're going to tell them.
Let's see. Greatest job in the world. Okay. There is life outside this job. All right. Remember that. So you got to take care of yourself, and exactly what your sticker says. Just fucking talk. Don't hold the shit in. You know, this isn't, I mean, the machoism of this, you know, it's going to catch up with you. So don't get to the point to where there's a no return. You know, things on this job are going to bother you. Just talk.
Solid advice, actually. All 3 of them. I mean, honestly, yeah, it is a great job. It's a job that'll take its toll on you, but it's a great job.
Oh, it is. It is. And I have no regrets with the fire service. No regrets. Again, at any point in the fire service, do I regret anything that I did? You know, I had the opportunity to, you know, serve as an instructor, you know, in academies. I had the opportunity to oversee academies, and, you know, I get to ride in charge of engines. I get to continue to be a paramedic, and do good for people. I mean, there's no regrets for it whatsoever, but it consumed me. It was me. The fire department always came first. My family and myself always came second. And that's another thing that it's a different way of how I look at things now. You know, I will come first before the fire service, and my family will always come before that as well. Cause I definitely put them on the back burner, and that's my fault. I own that. The fire department didn't ask me to do that. I was just willing to do it. And it didn't help my marriage any at all.
So any parting thoughts you want to give? Because I want to make sure that because we did cover a few things that we talked about.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure that we don't miss something that you might have wanted to talk about that I've forgotten to add in here.
The big thing is, you know, like I said, this is new for me, an experience, to sit here. And, you know, you want this to go perfect. You want to say the perfect things, the right things, because you want at least one person to go, I need help. Let me, you know, I'm walking down the same path as this guy that just, you know, is throwing his shit out here for anybody and their mother to listen to. And he went and got help, and it helped him. If you need to help, you got to make yourself vulnerable. And that is one of the most uncomfortable fucking things I know that I had to do. So I can imagine anyone else is you got to make yourself fucking vulnerable. Say something, get the help, and then let them help you. Because if you don't, I mean, the end result, you know, there could be no return from that. You know, again, be vulnerable about this shit, you know, and just talk to somebody, ask somebody, you know, and if somebody judges you for expressing that you need to talk, you have questions, something's bothering you, that's an individual that you don't need in your fucking life. And at some point, you know, I never would wish ill on anybody, but if they were, I would hope they never reached as bad as I did. But if they did, you know, I would still be there for them. But, you know, at some point, it's going to catch up to all of us.
So I know we talked about 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to add a third in, and I'm going to, yeah, it's my show. I'm allowed to do it.
Yes, sir.
I want to know what the last song is you heard.
The last song I heard.
What's the last thing you listened to?
Shit. It was an 80s song coming up here. Again, I scroll through the radio stations. Whoever sings that song, Don't You Forget About Me.
Oh, Simple Minds.
Simple Minds. That's it. It was Simple Minds coming up
from the classic of the Breakfast Club.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the. I mean, it wasn't just from the Breakfast Club, but that's what everybody knows it from.
Yes, sir.
If you haven't watched the Breakfast Club, I'm dating myself, so go watch it. It's worth it. All right, and I explained to you. I always ask somebody about an everyday carry. And the reason I do that, and I've gone in a couple times and described it on shows, but I based this show off of a novel called The Things They Carried, and it's by Tim O'Brien. It's a Vietnam era novel. And it talks about a platoon and what they carry into battle and then what they carry out of battle. So they're carrying equipment in, but obviously they're bringing something out that is attached to them. So I like to ask, what's an everyday carry that's something, if you leave home, you're going to feel naked without?
My morning prayers.
When you mentioned them when you were talking, I said, I bet that's where he goes with it.
Yep. And there's a particular way that I start these prayers in the morning, at home, and at the fire service. If I don't do that, I'm off kilter.
Makes sense, because it's something that kind of centers you, I imagine.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
All right. What about a book? What have you read lately, or something that stands out to you from the past? Anything that can give some value to the listener?
So again, I know a lot of people read this, but I read David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. Again, can't compare myself to that guy, but I'd love to fucking meet him one day. Just reading a story, and that's what introduced me to the ultra marathon, and actually, pushing yourself physically to get yourself to where you need to be mentally, and then vice versa. And then the current book I'm reading is 12 Simple Rules of Life.
12 Simple Rules of Life.
Yes, sir. And I can't remember the author, but he's a psychologist. It's a little bit of a tough read, but it's almost like that. This book needs to be, part of a school curriculum to kind of help you cope and deal with day-to-day things type deal.
Okay. Well, I'll find the author and I'll put it up on the show notes. So
yes, sir. Absolutely.
Man, I appreciate it. That was simple. From walking in here saying you've never done it before, you just did an hour and 20 minutes and time flew by, didn't it?
Well, the big thing too, if I can be a resource, like I said, I by no means am an expert. I by no means have any mental health training outside of being a paramedic and what I've learned in that. But I definitely know that there's avenues for us. So I'm, I don't know how you do this, but again, I'm on Facebook. I can be reached that way. If somebody ever needs to talk, if you ever need to talk, if you ever want to talk to me again, reach out to me.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on the show, and the fact that you've made this kind of a 180 change for yourself is wonderful.
Yes, sir. It's a never ending though. It's a never ending battle. I'm fighting in a whole different way now.
I think that we talked about that when we initially spoke, is that you're not cured. You've learned the tools to help yourself deal with the same stuff that you see each day.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. Well, I appreciate it. Well, I think we'll end it right there.
Absolutely.
All right. We're out.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Things We All Carry. Head over to the website, thethingsweallcarry.com, for show notes, resources, and to sign up for the newsletter. Until next week, take care of yourselves and remember to check in on each other.